Welcome to this episode of our program, Well Today, where we are having an in-depth look to the local and international press headlines. Let me welcome our guest, Mr. Hisham Al Ramly, political analyst. Thank you very much for joining us. We start from Ahram Online, and Kerry's vision for peace process is mostly consistent with Egypt's. This is according to the Egyptian Foreign Ministry, and it says Cairo believes that the principles proposed by the U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry to revive the Middle East peace process are mostly consistent with the Egyptian vision, but it is important that those principles are implemented eventually. This is according to the Egyptian Foreign Ministry, who spoke in a statement on Thursday, and according to Consular Ahmed Abu Zaid, the Foreign Ministry spokesman. He said that the vision proposed by Kerry would need to be fully studied and evaluated, revealing that the U.S. Secretary of State spoke with his Egyptian counterpart about some aspects of his vision in recent months during his talks with major international and regional parties involved in the peace process. Yes, we know that 2 days ago, the Secretary of State, or the U.S. Secretary of State, spoke about his vision to end the stalemate in the Middle East peace process, particularly the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, and the return of negotiations. They spoke about a two-state solution with the Palestinian borders of 1967 and Jerusalem as the capital of the two countries. They also spoke about several other terms in order for this country, or for this Palestinian country, to come to life. They also said bluntly, and for the very first time, that there would be no solution except for a two-state solution. How do you view this, particularly that we're speaking about an administration that will see its end and the coming of the next one by the 20th of January?
I think there are two parts to analyze this declaration. We had hundreds of declarations before, but never implemented. But lately, I think that the vision of the world have changed a little bit. The pressure of the good people or the good countries that they are trying to really implement the solution to the Palestinian is gaining some force. In the same time, I think that I'm always seeing the politics of the states extremely manipulating. I think they are putting an obstacle, or they are trying to gain a point before retrieving their stuff and releasing the new presidents. They are trying to put a bulk for his process. But you will never expect what the real intentions. But globally, I think that the world is going to be more transparent. It is more transparent the last 2 years. And people are seeing that Israel is making so many problems and was the cause of so many terrorism on the ground. Maybe they are trying to find really a solution. I hope so. But if it is just for declaration, as the spokesman said, it needs to be very well studied and really implemented, not just declaration.
Yes, very much indeed. But we're speaking about an administration that is coming to an end.
Yeah, that's why
it's just a few days.
Yeah, that's why I'm trying that they are trying to gain some points and put some obstacles in the route of the new president.
Right, yeah. But the new president, or Mr. Donald Trump's statements were very clear. Wait until January 20th.
Yeah.
What does this mean?
He has, I think he has a strategy, he has his own ethics and his own vision, and he will strike from the first day. But in which direction, we'll never know. We'll never know. We'll
have to wait until January 20th.
Nobody can say or predict what's coming.
Right, relevant to our story, but this time from the Gulf today, and hold settlements, PLO urge Israel.
Yeah.
And it says Israel pulled back from approving hundreds of new homes for Israelis in annexed Arab East Jerusalem before a speech in which the U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry was to give further vote to international opposition to settlement buildings. Saab Araqat, Secretary General of the Palestinian Liberation Organization, the PLO, called on Israel to take the high ground and declare a cessation of settlement activities, including Arab East Jerusalem, so we can give the peace process the chance to deserve by the resumption of meaningful negotiations. Let me here say that, of course, Egypt's policy has put the Palestinian cause as one of its priorities always. And it has always backed the Palestinians from the very beginning to the end. The issue now is that the Palestinian cause is the reason behind many of other, even directly or indirectly, but it is the reason for many other problems, including terrorism in itself.
From the 60s.
Yes. Now that this resolution came into ground with a vote of 14 countries, submitted by many, of course, by Egypt, as well as many other European and African countries, the implementation of such a resolution, how hard is it? How will Israel carry on with the implementation of such a decision on the ground?
I think on the ground there are two forces in Israelis. People who really seek peace with the whole world, and they are minimum. But on the other side, there are people and groups that are really extremely
radical,
and they will never leave. And even if, after hundreds of declarations and after hundreds of statements from the UN, they will create some problems, as they do usually, to spoil or to make obstacles to this implementation. It has to be carried out very with balance with the strong people, because now it is not only one pole. There are so many poles. And the people in general, globally, have seen this problem from a completely new perception lately. That's why, and now the terrorism is not coming from Palestinian only. It has created other pocket of terrorism in other parts. They are not afraid anymore from the Palestinian. There is Daesh, there is Al-Qaeda, there are many others that are causing this problem, which was caused by the problem of the Palestinian.
Very much indeed. From your point of view, how far do you think pressures would really be put on Israel at this upcoming stage? I mean, here, Mr. Trump was clear in his campaign statements when he said that he really wants to go through the internal affairs of the United States rather than the external ones, that he doesn't want to interfere anymore in the outside world, but rather is consistent on improving the U.S. economy and the internal affairs of the U.S. However, the security of Israel has always been a first priority for the United States. So how do you think this would put in balance here what he promised for what he will deliver?
He's keen about repairing the inner states. He's keen about that because he's a businessman, and his mind is completely oriented in economics and in business. But in the same time, he knows very much that who is governing the United States are the Jewish lobbies and the businessmen who are governed by Israelis. So he will never leave Israel by herself. He will try to make this balance. That's why I said in the beginning that Kerry declaration is an obstacle or something, a big bag to be put in his route to shake his route.
Yes. From Khalij Times, and it says Syria conflict ceasefire agreed for midnight, backed by Russia and Turkey. And it says the Syrian government and rebel groups have agreed to a ceasefire from midnight across the country, followed by peace talks. The deal was announced by Russian President Vladimir Putin and confirmed by the Turkish Foreign Ministry. Russia and Turkey, which back opposition sides in the bitter conflict, will act as grenadiers. Turkey said all fighting, including strikes, would be halted. However, some extremist groups are excluded. Of course, definitely, particularly the areas where Daesh is still in control.
Daesh and others, and Jabhat al-Nusra.
Jabhat al-Nusra, of course, Daesh, Jabhat al-Nusra. They're all the one...
Here there is a big question mark.
Many names to...
how Turkey is governing or taking a decision on behalf of the rebels. So they are governing them. Russia is helping Syria. It is well known. It's defending Syria. It's known. Bluntly, it's clear. I will not let Syria fall down. What is the business of Turkey unless they are in direct conflict with the rebels?
So
and
this
they
is
can
a
afford.
big question mark.
This is a huge question mark. That's why yesterday Mr. Erdogan said that the States was adopting the ISIS forces and adopting the rebels after the Russian army found so many arms and papers, and they caught even an American and Israeli and Qatari and Saudi in Aleppo. And they were announced in the United Nations by names. So the balance is completely, when you are on the ground, you found so many things. The truth is there. So the huge question mark, what is the business of Turkey? How she managed to say,
why Turkey speaks on behalf of the rebels, you mean here?
How come?
And what guarantees, or how can it be a guarantee to what will happen from the rebels?
So they are the CEO of the rebels.
That's a big question that Turkey has to answer.
Nobody thought about it, but it is so clear.
Yes, but anyway, hopefully, because it's very much needed from the humanitarian aspect. A ceasefire is needed, talks would be needed.
Of course, but I was on the ground there and I saw this manipulation and this charade that has been prepared from 2006. I saw it by my own eyes, so I don't... I hope that it will end by this time, but there are so many question marks about Turkey, about Saudi Arabia, about Qatar, about US, about France, about so many people who interfered in this Syrian affairs.
Right. I guess there are many question marks regarding, of course, the existence of Turkey, regarding the existence of many players on the ground of Syria. The Daily Star and Iraqi forces launch second phase of Mosul offensive against Daesh. And it says Iraqi security forces Thursday began the second phase of their offensive against Daesh militants in Mosul, pushing into some eastern districts where the battle has been in deadlock for nearly a month. Yes, Iraq. And Iraq has been carrying out with this offensive since October. It has gained some territory there, and they are in progress even. However, they have been stumbled for many reasons, for a certain reason or another, but they are carrying out. How important is this for Iraq to stabilize? How Mosul battle is important for Iraq to stabilize its...
It is extremely important because it is one of the most important petroleum cities. In the same time, the people themselves started to refuse this kind of terrorism that they are living in it for years. They are refusing all this charade that has spoiled their lives. That's why gaining territory and gaining the opinion of the people are encouraging them to push them out. But the other big question mark, where this ISIS groups will go. I heard that they are being transferred through Turkey to Libya. It has been declared. So we have moving people, groups that are allocated upon the war on ground and upon political intentions. So we have to see and to fight. I think that the declaration of our president that from 1 year or 2 years ago, that terrorism is our huge enemy in this world, and most of the world must really fight for this.
Yes, however, in order to fight some group or something, you have to really define
the founder and the
actually the
financiers.
term.
Yeah.
Because terrorism or terrorists are defined for some countries differently than they are determined by others. So we have to really put a definition to who should be considered as terrorists.
Yes, ma'am, this is our huge problem is definition and expectations, even in our lives. Even for the democracy word, we define it wrong and we get our expectation extremely wrong. It is like putting wrong data, so you'll get a wrong solution. It is, as you said, it is a problem of definition.
This problem of definition is really keeping keeping us, for an instant, Egypt, from carrying out with our mission to fight terrorism. Because, for an instant, who are the terrorists in Syria?
87 nationalities.
We don't know. We don't have a definition because it's different for the U.S. than that of Russia, from the perspective of the Arab or the Gulf from other countries. It is totally different, and this is the hassle in itself.
And they don't care about the people themselves.
Moving on to the World Bulletin, and Sudanese parliament endorses constitutional amendments. And it says that Sudan's parliament endorsed a raft of constitutional amendments, one of which will revive the country's prime ministerial post for the first time since President Omar al-Bashir came to power in a change of regime in 1989. Addressing lawmakers in the Assembly, Badriya Suleiman, head of the Parliament Legal Committee, said that the constitutional changes would also give the president more power, including authority to appoint cabinet ministers. According to Suleiman, the amendments will also create more than 100 new assembly seats to allow for greater parliamentary participation by the opposition parties and rebel groups that took part in Sudan's recent national dialogue. Right, so I guess this amendments to the constitution is a bit confusing, since it is raising the post of the prime minister for the very first time, but it allows the president to appoint a cabinet, a prime minister, to choose a prime minister. But then it allows, or it creates more than 100 new assembly in the parliament. So what exactly is the job description of this parliament?
I think it is a restructuring for rebalancing the country, because the country is going onto a new era of investments and getting another shape. Sudan is a very important country, but was always sleepy, or always not active. The last 5 years, there are so many investments, and the country is building itself. And I think this was done upon consultation of friends or friendly country to restructure the thing and to open up to the world, because they were always closed on themselves. Now they are changing the structure. The implementation, they will agree or not, we will see about that in a few days, because
what is very important, we're speaking about Sudan because Sudan is a brother country, and it is
our country.
Extremely important for our depth of our strategic national security. So when we speak about Sudan, we want a real stable Sudan. So how important were those amendments for stabilizing Sudan, for the conflicts that it have been enduring, particularly in the past
and artificially
years? How do you view the importance of those amendments?
we have to read them, and we have to see what will happen by this increase of the 100
new parliamentarian.
I think this is a good advice from. I don't want to say from our government, but I think they are restructuring the thing because we are now.
Let's say from your point of view, because
yes, it's my point of view. Yes.
So, what kind of suggestions would you?
Suggestions to restructure and to reinforce the structure of the parliament, because they are going into a huge era of investments, and they are trying to control the new laws that will be created in the few next months, investments law.
Let's say that sharing power is something important, and sharing wealth would be important for stabilizing.
To control, to control
for stabilizing the
country itself.
Yes, and of course, definitely, we are hoping the best for our brother,
for our Sudanese
brothers, and the whole world, definitely, at large.
It is a pity to have such incidents that are really sad. How can I say else?
It is a pity that we are not having, or that we are having countries in chaotic situation at a time that we need to regain those countries into the scene. Mr. Hisham Al Ramly, political analyst, thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you. And dear viewers, many thanks for watching. Stay tuned for the top stories coming right after this program.